What's up? Welcome to Tales Tomorrow. I'm Morrow, your storyteller for today, and with me I have some more RPG horror stories. You know, what's a horror story? This clipping and all the issues that I got on this avatar. This is a horror story in itself. Not an RPG horror story, but definitely needs to be improved or something. I noticed a tutorial somebody made on YouTube of basically breaking down how they do like models for gacha game characters and stuff, like all the waifus and husbandos and how they remake the characters. Maybe I'll use those tutorials to remake Morrow in 3D. I think it'd be kind of cool. Bit of a test of my skills and abilities, but I think it's worth testing yourself a little bit. Speaking of, let's see how much these problem players test our patience in some RPG horror stories for today. My DM paused our campaign because I stepped away for iftar during Ramadan. Should I just leave the group? I'm a Muslim and right now it's the holy month of Ramadan. To put it simply, we fast from sunrise to sunset, and we break the fast at sunset with a meal called iftar. The problem is that both of the D&D campaigns I'm playing take place around that exact time. That means I either have to join a few minutes late or step away for about 20 to 30 minutes to go eat with my family. To avoid confusion, I'll call the campaign Group A and Group B. I'm also the only Muslim in both groups. Group A is a campaign where I sometimes show up a few minutes late because we start either right around iftar or sometimes even 30 minutes before it. Players in that group are people I've known for years, and they're completely fine with me stepping away briefly if I need to break my fast. Group B is different. It's an online group I joined most recently, so I haven't known them nearly as long. In our campaign, I usually have to step away about 2 hours into the session to go break my fast. Before it ever became an issue, I asked everyone if that would be okay. Players were totally fine with it. DM, however, apparently wasn't. He posted an announcement saying, "I think it's best if this campaign is placed on hold. If you have an outside matter or other commitments that cuts into the campaign, that I cannot have you partake within the module." I'm the only person in that group who had to step away for something like this, so I feel like this might be directed at me, but he didn't explicitly say that. I say probably best just to ask the DM, like unironically, what's the point of posting like this is a notice to everybody. If you have a problem with a player, just talk to the player directly and be like, yo, can you not step away for whatever reason? Maybe they physically can't step away, maybe something's going on, but like, this just sounds very passive aggressive of the DM to be like, at everyone, this is gonna be happening, and I don't want to call names and stuff. I know they're trying to be tactful, but they're not really being tactful at that point. I'm the only person in the group who had to step away for something like that, so it feels like this might be directed at me, though he didn't explicitly say that. For context, the sessions usually last about 4 to 4.5 hours, so the most I'm gone is about 20 to 30 minutes once per session. If I was missing half the session, I'd understand the concern, but it's a pretty small chunk of time, and the group keeps playing while I'm gone away, which I insist on them doing regardless. Since the campaign now has been put on hold over this, I'm not really sure what the best move is. Ramadan obviously won't last forever, but if something like this is already a big issue, I'm starting to think it'd be better for me to step away from the campaign entirely. Edit, I've left the group. I appreciate everyone who commented for their advice. Dang it, I was gonna give you my advice. I was gonna say just leave the group, but no, for real. If you are put in this kind of situation, we need to step away for 20 to 30 minutes for Ramadan, iftar. I'm not even sure if I'm pronouncing things correctly. I'm sure I'm butchering and stuff. Dumb tiefling doesn't know languages and everything, but like if you need to step away for even a little bit, for even like a small bit, and the players can't continue, if it's a brand new player group and they're having an issue with it, just leave. You're not tied to them. It'd be one other thing if, let's say for example, this is a group of people you know for years and suddenly you stepping away was a bit of an issue, or arriving a little bit late was an issue, sure, but this is a brand new group of players that you don't even know really well and you don't have any major commitments to them or any history with them. Best to leave and find a different group. That's what I would say. I mean, I'm glad you did. Guess my advice goes out the window then. Let's get to the next story for today. By the way, I'm just acting out. I'm just acting a fool. I'm glad you left. I hope you find a better group that is understanding of that, and I'll wish you best of luck with your group A, B, whichever the group that you play like late with or whatever. Escape the toxic D&D group and doing significantly better since. Names have been changed so no one gets doxxed. I recently had a major falling out with a friend group at the end of last month over some issues within the group. And with last week, since I realized that it was an incredibly toxic group. I became friends with one member we'll call Jessica through working at the same place as them, and they introduced me to their childhood best friend who we'll call Paul. Everything seemed alright. We're literally playing Mario Kart online together, and I thought things were going okay. Paul decided to block out of nowhere immediately after, however. I was a bit confused, but it is what it is. I used to work as a tour guide at a place, and one day Jessica came in with Paul in tow. She was listening to the tour. Meanwhile, Paul was incredibly dismissive and ignored me at every opportunity. It was rather rude. This behavior continued until 2024, where he messaged me apologizing for the 3 years of treating me like crap. I decided to give the guy a chance. He also invited me to his D&D group. which Jessica was also part of. I wonder what you mean by block out. Like he blocked you or something? Is that what it means? He just blocked you for no reason? Maybe you beat him so hard in Mario Kart or something and maybe he was upset over that. Who knows? Weird. People do weird things. Let's continue. I accepted and he started by having me as an intern. He would have people do the intern thing for a few sessions to see if they were a good fit. I was able to make a character, though it was odd that I had to play a homebrew build he made, combination of paladin and druid. I made the character and realized very quickly that the setup he wanted from me was incredibly niche, and as someone who hadn't played in years, it was a lot to get used to. Meanwhile, other members could do whatever class they wanted, or were given extra bonuses like ability to summon greater demons. Whereas my most powerful ability to give others a +1 to those saving throws. It kinda, you know what it kinda sounds like? Paul just let you play as his DMPC. He made the Druid Paladin DMPC, and that's what you get to play as. Which is really strange and weird that other people get to make their characters and you don't. Like, my favorite part about D&D is making a character. If I'm introducing somebody for the very first time in D&D, I want them to make the very first character, choose any of the racial availability, any of the races and species available and sub-races and stuff in our campaign, which we have a crapload to be honest. Choose any of the classes including Artificer or Blood Hunter, or any of the homebrew ones that we have added from third-party stuff like Bender, Tamer, Gadgeteer, or Gunner. Great classes by the way, they're super solid. Zaman's Guide, Heliana's Guide, and Ryoko's Guide. God damn, they're so good. But like the whole point of playing D&D is to make your character. If you just make a character but you're forced to play a specific class or subclass or class combination, homebrewed stuff, he just got a weird, like, let players choose. Like, I get he's a new player, I get he's interning and stuff, but it feels weird to force him to play a specific class instead of letting him choose a class when everybody else gets to choose a class. And everybody gets to summon greater things like summon greater demons, and you just +1 to saving throws. Whoa, whoopee. Also found out that the person who was in the campaign before, he got kicked out because apparently there was issues as the person had gone crazy in Paul's own words. And same as multiple people before that. Okay, if your DM says everybody left because they were crazy, maybe they weren't crazy, maybe Paul is crazy. Potentially, maybe Paul is just a loon. I don't know. So at this point in time, there was him, Jessica, a guy who we'll call Joel, his partner Nikita, and another guy, Trevor. Not long after I joined, Joel and his partner broke up, so she was removed from the group entirely, and I was put in as a permanent player. As I got to know everyone in D&D and group setting, there was some warning signs I noticed, like the DM only really accepted ideas that he liked and ignoring any other suggestions. Now the people who got kicked out of this group were always connected to him, but ignored because I got along with the group. One trend being that every time there was someone kicked from the group, it was always an issue with either Jessica or Paul, and led to them kicking out individuals based on that. Always the same reason of they went crazy or talking about crossing boundaries. You know, I know somebody particularly, the rogue DM from my RPG horror stories, that also just wanted to remove people from the campaign or not have them participate because she just didn't like them. Something they said, something they did, stealing a little bit of thunder, getting a little bit too involved, getting a little bit too chummy, getting a little bit too buddy-buddy. I'm pretty sure that I and Micah were both on the front lines with that at some point, at some extent, behind the scenes. She liked to talk behind people's backs and find ways to have players be removed for one reason or another, which I generally don't understand what it is. Maybe some sort of like a power thing. I don't know. But this is extremely toxic and shouldn't be allowed at the table, should be nipped in the bud as quickly as possible. DM style was all very unique, in that the players would be shoehorned into situations. It was only what the DM wanted. You mean railroader, right? Because that doesn't sound like a style. That's just a railroad. If you shoehorn into a decision, that's a railroad. Call it shoehorn, call whatever. I like to say it as a railroad because there's only really one choice. The illusion of choice, as they say. You have all these choices, but ultimately the one is the one you're gonna make because you gotta make it, right? Because there's no way you're gonna make any other choice, right, player? Like for example, the party had a part of the campaign where they were locked in jail. They managed to break out, but he put the players in a position where they were unable to do anything, only to have us break out in the exact same way literally minutes later. Paul also started a Pokemon RPG game. This is where I began to notice a trend. He would shoehorn me into a researcher class by suggesting it was my only option, put me in a position where my character had to wait extra levels to do anything. Also had my main Pokemon stop listening to me and hid behind character development, despite lack of that being part of the character backstory. This relegated me to a sit back and let everyone else do the work role, and I wasn't having any fun at all. I brought it up, but I was told I was overthinking it by multiple people in the group. Yay! Group gaslighting! Everybody gather around together. We're gonna group gaslight. Everybody bring the kerosene together. Seriously, this sucks, man. It sounds like the entire group is just awful, and they're just removing people just because they went crazy. Wow, convenient excuse. Instead of explaining exactly what happened, they just went crazy. The amount of convenient excuses of everybody going crazy, which is why they left the group, is stacking up to the point where I think there's something a lot more going on here. I feel like this group is just really toxic. I wasn't really able to refuse. Recently, back in November, I had just come back from an overseas holiday, and the first session of D&D after that felt a bit weird, like I had been kind of put in a corner. Jessica and me were in a rough spot friendship-wise, which was an issue because Paul tends to side with them unconditionally, which isn't a bad thing sometimes, but it's to a degree where they are unable to recognize what they are when they are in the wrong, and no one ever really held them accountable, thus being increasingly isolated from the group. Like I would try to make plans, but would be ignored by everyone. Most recently tried to plan an Iron Lung outing to see Iron Lung in cinemas. Oh, I need to see that so badly. No one replied, so I went anyway. Majority of the group was there, so I just ignored them since they made plans without me. After I did raise the issue in a group chat, and was told I was imagining things by Paul, in his words, I was overthinking and going crazy over nothing. Okay, the gaslighting really needs to stop with this group. I feel like the entire point for this group is just to gaslight everybody. You're going crazy and overthinking things. Maybe I'm not going crazy. Maybe I'm not overthinking things. Maybe you are indeed a jerk that you say you are and you're trying to hide behind making me think I'm going crazy. This is, oh my god, this makes me think of the rogue DM so badly. She loved to gaslight. Oh my god, she was the master gaslighter. God damn, if you could have a spirit animal, it wouldn't be a spirit animal. It would be a floating sentient kerosene container. I don't know. She was master gaslighter. So I just left it at that. And like for me mentally, it was exhausting having to deal with the gaslighter on top of the other nonsense. At the last D&D session I attended, my character rolled a natural 1 on acrobatics check. Jessica also rolled a 1. However, her character took some fall damage. My character broke her shoulder and had to roll disadvantage on everything. This being a campaign finale meant that for the final boss, I was relegated to doing nothing because disadvantage on everything roll doesn't allow for much to be done. Did get one opportunity to attack by dropping onto the BBG from above, but the DM changed the rules saying falling cost the turn. So I had to fall for 1 turn while the party killed the BBG. After that, DM reached out to me and said I was a constant source of drama, that I was no longer welcome. Despite the last few months, he barely even involved me with the group. By this point, I was genuinely thinking I was going crazy. I was unsure if my perception of reality was in any way accurate. I never really got a chance to defend myself either. To be honest, it worked out because I managed to make some huge steps in life in the last few weeks, so it worked out long term. But I do wish it hadn't gone down the way it had definitely given me the red flags to watch out for in any future group. Yeah, this sounds like a party full of gaslighters, and I'm glad you end up leaving. Seriously, these guys sound awful, toxic as hell. What are you talking about? You going crazy? Maybe I'm not going crazy. Maybe you're just being a jerk and stuff. And of course, their excuse for the next player is, oh, that guy, he left because he's crazy. The amount of gaslighting you gotta do just to convince yourself that you are not in the wrong is just insane to me. Ow, I stepped on the wire. Sorry about that. But that is crazy. I'm glad you got out of the toxic group, for real. I don't think they were good for you in the slightest. I'm gonna do another story. You know, DM, I'm gonna do another story. -1 sanity point for being gay. Hi, this is my first time writing here, so it won't be a masterpiece. Just so you know, I'm Brazilian. My story begins in school. It was common to have electives and clubs focused on RPGs. In one of these, a friend of mine ended up being the game master. Campaign was a homebrew of the paranormal order system mixed with anime like Jujutsu Kaisen. To start, she said that nobody could have firearms, keep that in mind. Asked if I could be an FBI detective, and she said that nobody could have ties to the police. But then her friend arrives, who conveniently could be an army general who, guess what, has ties to the police and, coincidentally, could have firearms. And that's where the problem arises. Nobody can have firearms or ties to the police, but her friend can? That sounds like favoritism. Friend favor. I don't know why I'm doing a stupid voice. It sounds like friend favoritism, honestly. Nobody can do that except my best friend, but nobody else can do it. Sounds silly. Either everybody can do it or nobody can. Simple as that. It's just shrimple as that. Well, the session started and it was actually quite fun. Note, she only conveniently said no firearms were allowed in the middle of the session. When I decided to use the firearm I told her I had, but she wouldn't miss the chance to take away my sanity. She could have just said I didn't have one. But no, she had to take away my sanity. After that, the campaign continued. Just an addendum, remember I said that nobody could have firearms? That would be fair if it weren't for the fact that every NPC had firearms. Now, some information about my character. she was a lesbian woman. And remember that she was a lesbian. Wait, you literally just said that. Now imagine an unarmed woman against a bunch of heavily armed people. Unfair, right? That wasn't the only problem. Beside all that, I lost sanity for anything I did. I failed the test and broke a window, -1 sanity. Interaction with other players, -1 sanity. Campaign was full of sexual jokes. But if I made one of those jokes, guess what? -1 sanity point. I don't know if readers have watched the official Paranormal Order campaigns, but Celibate only removes sanity if the character actually sees something that would truly attack their sanity. Or in case of punishment, it would only be for metagaming, but not her. She would take away my sanity for anything. Maybe the joke that you saw was really cringe. Wait, can you in that system lose sanity for seeing something cringe or like saying something cringe? Like, I don't know, you see somebody trying to like awkwardly kiss but like knock teeth or something. -1 sanity because you saw it. That was very cringe. I don't know. Seems like your DM doesn't like you. Beside all the injustice, there was another problem. She insisted that my character be with a man, even though it was explicitly clear to her that the damn character was a lesbian. She kept pushing male NPCs on my character, and she always refused. My character was friends with another player's character, and she wanted them to get together, but their relationship was more like Patrick and SpongeBob than anything romantic. But why? Because my character was a lesbian, and the Game Master was a Seventh-day Adventist. What is that? Is that Christian? Yes, she wanted the character to be a heterosexual as possible because of that, but the character wasn't. I wouldn't change my character simply because the spoiled Game Master is a homophobic Seventh-day Adventist. Beside all that, she simply kicked several players out of the game just because she didn't like them. I wasn't one of them, unfortunately, but in return I took sanity damage for anything. I haven't had problems with her and her friend outside the game involving false accusations. But nowadays, I have no contact with either of them, thank God. One of the comments says, I took -1 sanity reading this. I take -1 sanity for the fact that you didn't leave very early on. When she started kicking out everybody except you. This was like, you're out. You should be like, you know what? Everybody's getting kicked out. I should probably leave as well. That's weird. I don't know anything about Seventh-day Adventist, or maybe I mispronounced it correctly. I don't know anything about any religious groups whatsoever. I don't know if you can tell, but as a tiefling, I don't exactly care too much except for one god only, Timora, the goddess of luck, the lady of natural 20s and natural ones. But no, for real, it's really cringe for your DM to be punishing you so severely just because you made a character the way you made your character. It would be the same thing as like playing as a tiefling in a campaign where DM is okay with tieflings and then suddenly everything is a punishment every single time. It's like the stories where we like literally read just not long ago, like we read a story together about somebody playing as a drow and every single time they're constantly against an upper hill for no reason whatsoever. When stupid arbitrary like rule sets are placed on one single character instead of everybody at the party for extended period of time unnecessarily for no reason whatsoever with no ways of improving, like you take insanity for your character being a lesbian, that's stupid. I don't see what would be so fun about it. You breathe as a lesbian, -1 sanity. You sigh as a lesbian, -1 sanity. You take a sandwich, you take a bite of a sandwich and you're a lesbian, -1 sanity. Gee, DM, I wonder if you're trying to tell me something here. Gee, DM, could you make your homophobia seem a little bit more apparent all of a sudden? He's just really dumb. He's just really stupid. What's the point of playing with somebody like that? Honestly, you should have left from very early on. You should have left from way early on. I feel like you would have saved yourself a hassle and patience if you just didn't play with this person in the slightest or left early on as soon as you start seeing red flags. Listen, you can leave games. You totally can. You don't have to stay in bad games. No D&D is better than bad D&D. It's not worth staying in a bad game, especially if this is constantly going on all the time to you every single time. If you find bad behavior happening, leave. Get out of it. It's not worth it. Your time is way better spent doing literally anything else out there than being in a bad game where your GM is just punishing your character for, God forbid, being a lesbian. Oh, the humanity. And with that, that's going to be all our stories for today. I want to thank you very much for watching and thanks so much for being here. If you like what I do, consider subscribing to the channel and leaving a like. Also, if the RPG Horror Stories ever goes down or if you want to submit your own personalized horror story, email is down in the description below. I'll see you again in more Tales Tomorrow. Bye-bye.